Call to order, please. We'll all stand and give the Pledge of Allegiance. After that, remain standing, and Robert Volwell, pastor of the Free Will Baptist Church of Lowell, will give the invocation. I'm sorry, his name is Volwell.
Gracious Heavenly Father, as we come in your presence this evening, we thank you, Lord, for the freedom that we can gather together and, Father, take care of our business. We especially pray for our city council and our mayor this evening. Guide and direct them, Lord, we ask. And, Father, especially as our hearts go out tonight, we lift up the LZ Tucker family. We ask you, Father, to shield them in your arms of love, comfort and strengthen them in their time of bereavement. And, Father, we just thank you for all the blessings you give us. Continue now to lead and guide as we give you the glory and praise and honor. In your precious name we ask. Amen.
Roll call, please.
Kamala Lamons. Here. Ted Morrell.
Here.
Eric Shine.
Here.
Darren Brock.
Here.
Keith Williams.
Here.
Carol Harmon.
Here.
Marty Latham.
Here.
Sean Ingram.
Here.
We have a quorum. First item on the agenda is the consent agenda. That contains a Lowell City Council minutes, regular meeting March 6, 2007, and the financial statement for February 2007. Any questions? All in favor of passing, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I would like to make a motion that we amend the agenda to include the following. Add to old business. Council did not formally accept the resignations of Chris Sparks and Mike Hook, and we need to do so.
I so move. I'll second.
Roll call.
Darren Brock.
Yes.
Sean Ingram.
Yes.
Ted Morrell.
Yes.
Carol Harmon.
Yes.
Kamala Lamons.
Yes.
Marty Latham.
Yes.
Eric Shine.
Yes.
Keith Williams.
Yes.
We'll have the public forum now. Mr. Dean Bittner.
Mr. Mayor and Council, I appreciate you all allowing me to come and speak to you this evening. And some of you I've spoken with before, Ms. Lamons, and some of the others I know that Mr. Morrell came and visited during the last campaign cycle. And at that time we talked a little bit about the drainage issues in our neighborhood. I live at 309 Valley Drive. I've lived there since December 23rd of 98, which is it's the last house on the end on Valley Drive on the left. It joins the Links property further to the west. We have a significant drainage problem in our little corner of the world down there, and most of you are aware of it. Some of you have probably been there to see it firsthand. I've got some photographs that, if you don't mind, I'll start on this side with Ms. Harmon, and we'll let them make their way around. These photographs are a few years old, and actually the problem has increased from here. And I'm a little bit concerned about the prospective development that the Lindsay Corporation wants to do there on Monroe Street, and certainly I want them to maximize their property and use it to its best potential. But at the same time, I'd like for this body to be respectful and mindful of the fact that we're taking a beating down on the end of Valley Drive. like I say, those photographs are a few years old, and if you'll notice, you can actually see on the fence that runs across the creek that separates my property from the Lindsay Links property. You'll actually notice that there's debris up on that fence. And if you'll notice in the background, you'll see in one of the photographs, my side yard has got a fair amount of water in it. And keep in mind that these photographs were taken many, many hours after it had quit raining. I was on duty the previous day, and it had rained that night, the evening and night, and I wasn't able to get home in time to take photographs until some 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning. All right. There's a photograph there where you can see where it deposited trash in my yard, which is literally every time it rains occurrence. The problem that I have is threefold. Firstly, there's on the cart path there on the Links property, there is a low water bridge that has 4 tin whistles in it about that big. All right, and when the water runs down there, it's all wonderful when there's no debris. Unfortunately, every time it rains, I get all kinds of debris, everything from tires to mud flaps to logs big enough that I can't reach around them. Well, when those tin whistles clog, which is instantly, that forces the water level to rise to at least the height of the bridge. Well, that deposits trash in my yard every time, even on a little rain. Furthermore, when it clogs, and for those of you that have been canoeing, you'll recognize this term, when the trash washes down, it eddies right there at the bridge, and it deposits all of the beer bottles and plastic balls from Dairy Queen and tires and everything else right there. So I've got a great big fish net that I go out there and clean out my creek every time it rains. All right? So that's the first problem. That little tin whistle bridge is just not cutting it. Everything's getting dumped on my property, and I'm not a happy camper. Secondly, at the end of my street, where Valley Drive ends, it actually ends into a gate which goes into the Links property. Every time it rains, water will stand there and create a mosquito farm right there at the end of the street, and it may last a week. It may last 3 or 4 days, depending on how much rain we've had recently. The neighbors that live at the end of the street who are not here, they have to ford water, literally, to get in their driveway. So that's an issue. And unfortunately, that water doesn't drain. It's been a problem for years. Lastly, with the development that we as a city are undertaking upstream from me, more and more water is running off. The more water we put under asphalt and concrete, the more water I get. The bank has eroded. Ms. Harmon, I think, has been out there and looked at the property. The bank has eroded on a number of occasions. I've actually backfilled the bank now last year before last with a backhoe and some topsoil, trying to slow it down so it doesn't wash my pine trees out on the end there nearest the Links. But more and more water is coming down through there. And again, it's rising closer and closer to the home. Now, when we first bought the home, when the mortgage company told us that it was in a floodplain, that we had to have flood insurance. So we purchased flood insurance. And we carried flood insurance for a number of years, and then a few years ago, during the big refi craze, when all the interest rates were down, like most of you, we refinanced our home. And at that time, they said, well, it's not in a floodplain anymore. How'd that happen? And I said, well, I don't know. Are you sure? And they said, yeah, it's not in a floodplain. Okay, so we weren't required to have flood insurance any longer. Well, now I'm told by Tony and other city officials and the good folks from the engineering company that now it's in a floodplain again. So I guess probably I ought to go buy flood insurance again. But I came to you to seek relief. We are taking a beating on that end of the street. The field where these folks are projecting to build their building and raise some of that up out of the floodplain, that field, I have seen water run through it a foot deep. So my concern is not so much with this development, because it's not the end of the world, and I want them to be able to do whatever they need to do with their property. But my concern is what future development is going to be done, which will raise even more of that property up. And then that water can't go through there anymore. It has to go around there. And where does it go around there? 309 Valley Drive. So I'm asking for relief. I've gotten nothing from the Lindsay folks. In fact, I used to go over and clean their bridge out. And then the most recent apartment manager told me to, in nice ways, using good language here, to stay off his property and leave his bridge alone. So if you go look at it right now, it's partially obstructed with debris that is washed down just under normal circumstances. So when we get a little bit of a rain later this week, I would invite you to all come to 309 Valley Drive and bring your swim trunks and hang out with me in the backyard, because that's what I'm going to have, is a little junior lake right there. So I would ask this body to be responsible in their developments. The property over here, the Carter Farm, which is now under warehouse, and concrete. All that water runs. If you'll notice the water in that photograph, in those photographs, it's red. That's red dirt. That tells me there's construction going on upstream. So, with that said, I'm just asking for relief. I'd like the drainage issue fixed at the end of the street and do something about the mosquito farm. It's that time of year. I'd like for something to be done about the little half-hearted attempt at a bridge that the good Lindsay folks put in that is causing me more grief than it's worth. And I'd like for this city to do something, Mr. Mayor, to lead the charge about responsible development and stop dumping more water on 309 Valley Drive. I beg of you. That's all I have.
Next on the agenda is Guy Shoemaker.
Guy Shoemaker, 315 Center. I've got a couple of things I want to cover tonight, Mr. Mayor, if I may. Number one, as you can see, I got my ears lowered Friday, sitting in the barbershop. I took some of the static caused by one of these council members here. That is totally disgusting. They asked me, says, Guy, how can you support somebody who claims they ain't qualified to do such a thing for a job the mayor appointed? Because I have to plead stupidity. I had no idea what they was talking about. So I got a hold of Carol Harmon and asked her. And I apologize for that representative's conduct, Perry. If she ain't qualified to do the job, then she should get out. I'm dead serious about it. Number two, Janet, would you tell me how much money I owe tonight?
Tonight you owe $300. This is a match on the donations made by Francis Wage family, Cordelia Lee, my mother, Carol Harmon, councilwoman. And
Mayor, would you like to step down here,
you
please?
have the list here if anyone would like to see the total list of donations.
Now, I've challenged each one of you members to match it to $100. Now, a leader leads. He don't follow. And I expect every one of you, you're getting paid nice money, an extra $125 twice a month. Give something back to the city. And you too, Tom. I'll take your $100 and I'll match your $100. I'll match every one of you guys' $100 bills without, because I have pledged I'll match $1,900 worth of from the city employees. Okay.
You just owe another $100. Actually, I just gave you a check for $100. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Boy, you're the big money guy, aren't you?
There you go. I do now.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Right.
Let's give Guy. Next on the public agenda, I'd like to introduce Linda Shimko. She's our newest planning member and was appointed at the last council meeting, but she was basking in Florida in the sunshine while we were all here in the cold. Linda, would you stand up, please? Thank you. Any other comments from the audience? Okay, we'll close the public forum. Next on the agenda is committee reports. I think we have a Parks Committee report tonight.
It's short and sweet, Perry. We had a public hearing this evening at 6 o'clock for the revision to the Parks Plan. You can't hear me?
On the recording, it's very difficult to hear most of the people on the microphone.
Okay. No, it's more like I talk to my students. As I said, we had a public hearing this evening at 6 o'clock for the revisions to the park plan. Unfortunately, we only had a couple of people show up. Right now, we are still checking on our, we've got our footprints going, and that's kind of where we're at.
Thank you, Cindy. I think everything's getting ready to go, from what I understand.
It is. We're trying.
Okay, we're ready to start building it. Okay, thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is to accept the resignation of Chris Sparks as a planning commissioner effective February 2307, and the resignation of Mike Hook as a planning commissioner effective March 5, 2007. Do I hear a voice vote of approval?
I'd like to move we accept the resignations.
Second.
Voice vote, please. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. New business. An ordinance amending the City of Lowell zoning ordinance by rezoning certain lands owned from medium-density residential to retail office. I think we have some representatives from Craft and Toll here to speak about that.
Hello, my name is Matt Castor with Craft and Toll Sparks and Associates. Here to request a rezone. Do you care which piece of property we do first?
Doesn't matter.
Okay, let's start with First Security Bank. It's directly north of Monroe, south of Lindsay's subdivision, west of Puppy Creek. It's business that needs to be, should have been taken care of in the past, and we're just trying to clean it up. I can answer any questions. What's that?
Does anyone have any
believe I do.
questions? What we're doing is rezoning the land that the First Security Bank is built on. It was never rezoned.
Was it just a mistake? I mean,
It was missed when it went through large scale. Right now it's medium density residential. It should be a residential office. It follows the future development plan for the city of Lowell, having it zoned that way.
Do you know what the map was showing that as? Was it showing it as commercial? 'Cause that's something hard to miss.
I know it.
I wonder if the map.
I really don't know.
I think, Councilman Williams, I think that was one of those large scales we did back when we were looking at changing the rezoning classifications here in the city of Lowell, and I think it was Zone C2 way back when all this property was, and it's somehow gotten confused. We're just trying to get it all cleaned up as we do the other rezoning.
I think it just kind of fell through the cracks, Keith, and we're going back to clean it up now. Any comments or questions? Ted?
I know that you addressed quite well at the Planning Commission meeting the drainage problems that exist there. I'm still a little bit unclear as to how this development is going to affect the property owners behind. And are you taking steps, I hope, that will alleviate some of the problems, and what other problems do you see back there? I mean, I realize you're an engineer and an expert in that area. What other problems do we have to address as a city or as Lindsay Development?
We actually communicated to the Lindsay Management Company the issue with the culverts not being cleaned out, and they were supposed to have directed and actually the gentleman that was referred to earlier no longer works for Lindsay Management and does not operate that golf course anymore. There's somebody new there, and he was supposed to have taken the steps and sent the letters necessary to ensure that those culverts are going to be cleaned out from this point forward. If it does not happen, I would ask that I get a phone call, and I will take care of that accordingly.
Is that going to take care of the problem? I mean, that's a massive amount of water.
There's not any way to fix the floodplain and floodway issues. According to the map, those houses are in the floodway, and short of the city rerouting that channel and redirecting the floodway, which the Corps has not been allowing anybody to do. We tried to do it where we're doing the hospital up in Rogers, reroute part of that, and the Corps wouldn't let us do that. That's the only way it can be done, is for the whole channel to be redone and actually be physically moved to the west or something like that. And the Corps has not been receptive to that because the floodway is also considered a wetlands.
Any other comments? Yes.
Once again, Dean Bittner, 309 Valley Drive. With respect to the gentleman's comments about Lindsay, I've not gotten anything from them. And I think Ms. Harmon can testify that those culverts are partially obstructed as we speak. And they will be further obstructed by the end of the week. So keeping those culverts cleaned out certainly helps, but it's not the end. It's not the solution to the problem. So with respect to the First Security property, I made this same argument when that property was under consideration, when they were looking at building that building there. So I don't know about it ever being zoned C2. So at that time, I think it was still medium density residential, and I just assumed that it had been taken care of like everyone else. But the only contact I've had from anybody at Lindsay was a greenskeeper who was in my yard one morning for some reason known only to him, who approached me and apologized if he had said or done anything to offend me. And I explained to him certainly he had not, that it was his boss and the folks at Lindsay. So the bottom line is that I'm a person that operates under good faith. Lindsay has shown me no good faith. They won't do anything about blocking the water at the end of the street. They won't do anything about that culvert. It's a continued problem. It has been for 9 years now. So it's all about good faith.
Mr. Mayor, may I? There's one thing that's troubling to me, Mr. Bittner, is we spoke back in September or October.
Yes, sir.
And I went and spoke with Mr. Carnahan at that time, and he called you and spoke with you, got some details on, and I think you might have seen the pictures that you had
Yes,
shown. Sir. His answer to me was that he told you that he was going to have to contact Lindsay Management and find out what they were willing to do.
Right.
His answer to me was that you told him, don't do that.
Don't talk to Lindsay?
Yeah. That's the story I've got. And that's where we're at a standstill at this point.
Yeah,
Gary was more than willing to try and work out something with Lindsay Management because it's their property that's causing the problem.
I can't imagine that I would have ever said that, Mr. Morrell, but I guess anything's possible.
I'm not trying to be argumentative. I'm just saying that's the story I got, and I thought that's where it's going to end if that's the way you felt about it.
No, certainly the bridge is a problem, and it has been all along. Now, the young man who was the manager over there at that time, his name was Mike, and that's about all I know. He was of no help. Now, I mean, I certainly wasn't interested in getting him fired or anything like that. So, I mean, I may have told Mr. Carnahan, don't get the guy fired or something, but I did want some relief, and I still do.
If we could ask the mayor then to speak with Mr. Carnahan and try and get the ball rolling again and speak with Lindsay Management, we'll try and do what we can for you.
You bet. And, you know, I've been a really good neighbor to the Lindsay folks. I mean, when they needed their fountains set after somebody stole their boat, the greenskeeper used to come over and get my canoe and my paddles and go out there and fix his fountains. And, you know, the trees that would fall down and wash downstream, I'd cut them up and drag them out. There's a monster elm tree. If anybody wants any free elm that's already cut to length to burn, come get it. But Ms. Harmon can testify to that. I've got more elm than I can say grace over that I've cut up. I could have left it alone and just let it go. I mean, that's what everyone else upstream seems to be doing because I'm getting it. So,
thank you. Any other comments or questions? Guy?
I've lived here almost 5 years now, and I drive by that Lindsay place over there regularly, because rather than have to go all the way around to get over onto Pleasant Grove Road. When it rains, the flood pond, that pond over there is overflowing with all kinds of trash. Where does that trash go? It comes down on the culvert and blocks the culvert. I've seen the flood in Valley Drive. It's stupid. I questioned when they built the bank, why don't we have a sidewalk over there? And I was told by one of the planning people, it's been delayed. I don't think we need any more building over there until Lindsay gets off of his duff and does something to protect the neighbors and protect the was it Dixieland Road? What's going on underneath there? Until they do something, I do not feel you should rezone that at all. Thank you.
Thank you, Guy. Ronnie?
Ronnie Breland, 119 South Brandon. With regards to Mr. Lindsay and Mr. Bittner, you've got a building that's already sitting there, and all they're wanting to do is get it to match up to the city's usage. So I don't see the harm into getting it back to the retail office. Now, there is the problem with everything else. So anything else that comes in, you can look at it to try to make and enforce to where they can have to do something. Say, all right, you've got to put some kind of drainage up. You've got to do this, cut a ditchway, whatever you've got to do to keep it from coming back in on these people back here on Valley or back in Franklin Terrace, because even back there on the back street back there in Franklin, it floods up. So, I mean, all them drainage ditches, and even down there off of 264, when you look down that drain where it flows down in them ponds and everything, they overflow all the way back up in there. But that bank, you're just trying to get it to match up to the city's usage right now.
That's right. Thank you, Ronnie. Any other comments? Do I hear a motion we suspend the rules and place this ordinance on the third and final reading?
So moved, and read by title only, please.
Second.
Second.
For your information.
An ordinance amending the City of Lowell zoning ordinance by rezoning certain lands owned from medium-density residential to retail office.
Point of information.
Yes, Eric.
Which piece of property are we talking about? The whole
The
thing?
bank is.
Just where the bank is.
Track two. Tract two. The track two.
Roll call.
Keith Williams,
Yes.
Marty Latham,
Yes.
Carol Harmon,
Yes.
Kamala Lamons,
Yes.
Eric Shine,
Yes.
Darren Brock,
Yes.
Ted Morale,
Yes.
Sean Ingram.
I'd like to move for a due pass.
I'll second that.
I hear a vote. Vote, please.
Ted Morale,
Yes.
Marty Latham,
Yes.
Sean Ingram, Eric Shine,
Yes.
Darren Brock,
Yes.
Kamala Lamons,
Yes.
Keith Williams,
Yes.
Carol Harmon.
Yes.
That'll be ordinance number 780.
Thank you. The next ordinance is a piece of property just east of the one you just rezoned. They join one another. An ordinance amending the City of Lowell zoning ordinance by rezoning certain lands owned from medium-density residential to retail office. Any comments?
I think this property's already been brought up. I mean, the grading's already done on this, correct?
That is correct. The site has been filled. There will be a minimal amount of additional fill that will have to take place, but again, it is minimal.
How deep are the curbs going to be on there?
It'll be 6-inch curb.
And it will have a gutter and culvert drain straight into the Lynx Lake, correct?
Part of the site will drain north of the gentleman that spoke earlier, or downstream gentleman that spoke earlier, and part of it will drain just slightly upstream of the gentleman.
The majority of the water will be sloped to the lake, to the Lynx Lake.
I would assume that it's pretty close to half and half. Most of it right now slopes directly upstream, and the amount of runoff will not increase of what goes upstream.
Any other questions? Yes.
One last time, Dean Bittner, 309 Valley Drive. I'm sure you're tired of looking at me, but let's make this easy for everybody. I'm not opposed to what these folks want to do, and I would encourage each of you to support them in their endeavors here to rezone this property and to build whatever commercial office space they want to build, with this stipulation that they and their client become good neighbors. I'd like for you to go back to Jim Lindsay or John David. I don't care, but I'm tired of talking to little fish. I want to talk to a big fish. And I'd like for them to be good neighbors. I'm trying to play nice. I could stomp my feet and throw a fit. That's not my style. But the bottom line is that I'm asking that they play nice. And to this point, Lindsay Corporation has not. Now, the curb cut, and Mr. Mayor, you and I spoke about it earlier when you look at those plans, it's pretty clear to me in looking at those plans that there is an intention, or at least an outlet for future development and future elevation change on that property. And I can promise you that when that happens, I will come back again, and I will ask you to fight that one tooth and toenail. This little piece of ground that's already elevated and the piece of ground that will come with it to be elevated to meet these needs won't really change much about the way my life goes on. But it's clear from their drawings that there are plans for the future. And that concerns me. Quite frankly, it scares the heck out of me, because that water's got to go somewhere. I'd encourage you to approve what they have here before you tonight, with the caveat that from this point forward, Jim Lindsay, play nice.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Mr. Bittner, I don't know if we can put that contingency on a rezone. I think we probably could on a large scale, could we not, Tom? Can you put that on a rezone? I don't know if you can put a contingency on it like that, because it's either rezoned or it's not. I don't really know. Play nice.
What's Latin for play nice, Tom?
No, you're right. You can't do it on a rezone, but I think Mr. Bittner will probably show up when it comes large scale time.
Okay.
You bet. And when I say that, asked him to play nice, and I appreciate your position, Mr. Williams. I realize you can't put that in a legal document, but certainly this young man can take that business card and carry it back to Jim or John David and ask one of them, say, hey, give the middle-aged balding white guy a phone call, because he ain't a happy camper.
I would definitely bring that up in the large-scale development and push that on the Planning Commission,
okay,
and really push that issue, because that's, in my opinion, that's when you really do need to push that is on the large scale.
I can tell you, Mr. Williams, I have seen water run through that field on the other side of the berm. So what they're doing now is not going to change anything really, other than a little dab of runoff. But the bottom line is that field, when that gets brought up, we're trying to put 10 pounds of stuff in a 5-pound sack, it won't fit. So anyway, I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional comments? Ronnie?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, I just respect Dean and everything on what he's saying. And I think that if you enforce it to where, and make it to where that he has to, when he builds it on this rezone and everything, or takes it for large scale or whatever, that he has to put in certain stipulations to where he has to comply with each one of the drainages and runoffs to where it doesn't run on any of the neighboring back there, then I think everybody will be happy. And as long as those whistles are kept cleaned out and everything back there, and that'll keep it off of Dean.
Thank you, Ronnie.
Mr. Mayor? Yes. May I ask that we place on the agenda for the next meeting a report from Mr. Carnahan and a discussion with Lindsay Management, see what steps we can take to the problem?
Made note, Ted. Thank
Mr.
you.
Mayor,
Eric?
I've got a question. I did hear that some of the drainage is going to go upstream and some is going to go downstream. Would this not affect the water flow that's going through there right now? I hear people saying that it won't, but just common knowledge tells me water flows downhill. And this particular piece of property is already higher than the rest of it, so it may or may not be running that direction at this moment, and we don't know unless somebody's done a study on that. But if it's running towards the street or towards the other direction, it would not be flowing over there. Now, if a portion of that water is flowing upstream, then it would affect what's going on right now.
Actually, we did prepare a drainage study, and I reviewed it, and we submitted it to the Planning Commission and to Mr. Carnahan, and it does comply with all the City of Lowell's drainage ordinances and requirements. And not to belabor the point or go into all the technical details, basically, at the end of the story, once this project is developed, it'll actually reduce ever so slightly, such a small fraction, it's a 1/10%, but it will actually reduce the total flow rate, I better say flow rate, that's in that creek. So it actually does make it better, not worse. And we have prepared the report and submitted that to Mr. Carnahan as required by the City of Lowell as part of our large scale.
Just a little background info. The federal government regulates development throughout the country, and when a piece of property is developed, it has to meet federal guidelines, and one of those is that you cannot increase runoff off a piece of property. It has to be equal to or less than, so he has to follow federal guidelines when he develops a piece of property. So I guess it's FEMA Phase 2 is what it's called.
Yeah, it's part of the Clean Water Act issued by the EPA and by FEMA and the National Urban Runoff Program that was done back in the early 80s, and that's kind of what created all the drainage manuals and drainage requirements that all the different cities have adopted throughout Arkansas and the country.
Ted?
We're not going to resolve the issue here tonight. I think that hopefully the idea of getting Mr. Carnahan involved and working towards improving the situation there on Valley Drive is the way to go, I hope. With that, I'd like to suspend the rules, place on third and final reading. Read by title only, please.
Second.
Roll call.
Carol Harmon,
Yes.
Sean Ingram,
Yes.
Kamala Lamons,
Yes.
Darren Brock,
Yes.
Keith Williams,
Yes.
Marty Latham,
Yes.
Eric Shine,
Yes.
Ted Morale.
Yes.
Do I hear a do pass motion, please?
So moved.
Second. Yeah, you got to read it.
An ordinance amending the City of Lowell zoning ordinance by rezoning certain lands owned from medium-density residential to retail office. Do I hear a do pass, please?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Eric Shine,
Yes.
Kamala Lamons,
Yes.
Ted Morale,
Yes.
Marty Latham,
Yes.
Sean Ingram,
Yes.
Carol Harmon,
Yes.
Keith Williams,
Yes.
Darren Brock.
Yes.
That'll be ordinance number 781.
Thank you, council.
Thank you, gentlemen. Next item on the agenda is to reappoint Planning Commission members to assigned position numbers with designated expiration dates for their term of office. Tom Kicklack will tell us how this come about.
Very simply, we've talked about this before. We have encountered some confusion with a couple of different ordinances that start terms, and we had term ending dates because they were basically a number of years from those starting dates. But then we had appointments and reappointments and vacancies filled, and you couldn't tell by looking back at all the records or at least different folks thought they could tell, but we had some conflict as to who filled what seats. The idea is if we'll assign numbers to those seats, we'll always know if we'll just say what position they're filling, what number. We won't have to know the name anymore. And then we start from zero again today. We maintain that staggered term because I think we value that, so we won't replace the entire commission at once. And we maintain the holdover provision because I think we value that also. So we don't ever have, if someone has to leave today, we don't have a period of weeks or even months with a vacancy if they can just wait until we get a reappointment. Or if we don't get someone appointed on time, they can hold over legitimately until we get that position filled. So that's what this does. It gives us a fresh start. Also, we'll reappoint everyone who's there and secure legitimacy in that way also.
Any questions?
So this does not extend their term 3 years. This okay. Just want to make sure.
Tom, I was kind of wondering, is it wise to, on position 4, to create a term that expired 9 months ago? Wouldn't we rather just update that ordinance to?
No, he has to be reappointed.
Yeah, we'll reappoint him through this ordinance.
Through this ordinance, reappoints him. This ordinance here.
It's the next item on the agenda.
Would we be wiser to do that one first and then change this to say 09 rather than creating an ordinance that sets an expired term and then renewing it next?
Well, we're approving one that's vacant.
Well, it's a position we're approving with a term limit.
It's a position.
It's a good question, Darren. I think the idea was just to try to get those staggered terms set. And to this way, no matter, problems with cities is sometimes corporate memory. So 8 years down the road, none of us may be here. But when they look at this, it'll be just clear as day as to when they started, what the positions were, and what the expiration dates were. So everyone will, hopefully they'll get reappointed with some order. And this makes it a lot easier to do that. And I figure we just try to keep it as simple as possible.
Okay. So we don't have a problem with creating a term that expired last June? Okay.
Any other questions?
Would we run into a problem if my opinion is I'd like to see position 6 and position 1 reversed? Have James Milner appointed until 09. Appoint a new term. And we could appoint a new member now to fulfill the.
I think you can switch positions.
Well, there's not a position. We're creating the positions right here.
No, we tried to put them in the best we could of who they replaced and numbered and just simply numbered the positions. I don't know whether I brought that or not, but I had the list of who he replaced. I didn't bring that list.
Well, he replaced Ronnie Profit.
If I remember right, he was appointed in October, November of last year.
Correct.
I think it was Ronnie Profit's position.
Correct.
So he has to stay in that slot because of the time expiration, the 2 and 3 years. Any other questions? Do I hear a motion we suspend the rules and place on third and final reading?
So moved, and also read by title only.
I'll second. Second. Eric? Any questions? Roll call.
Marty Latham,
Yes.
Carol Harmon,
Yes.
Eric Schein,
Yes.
Keith Williams,
Yes.
Darren Brock,
Yes.
Sean Ingram,
Yes.
Kamala Lamons,
Yes.
Ted Morrell.
Yes.
Do I hear a do pass motion for an ordinance reappointing planning commission members to assigned positions with designated expiration dates for term of office?
Do pass.
Roll call, please.
Darren Brock,
Yes.
Sean Ingram,
Yes.
Eric Schein,
Yes.
Carol Harmon,
Yes.
Ted Morale,
Yes.
Marty Latham,
Yes.
Keith Williams.
Yes.
Kamala Lamons.
Yes.
That's ordinance number 782.
Next item on the agenda is a reappointment of Gene Graham to position 4 of the Planning Commission for the term expiring 6/13/09. Any questions? Keith?
I'd like to move that we reappoint Mr. Graham.
I'll second that. I'll second it.
Any questions? Roll call, please.
Sean Ingram. Yes. Marty Latham.
Yes.
Ted Morale.
Yes.
Eric Shine.
Yes.
Keith Williams.
Yes.
Kamala Lamons.
Yes.
Carol Harmon.
Yes.
Darren Brock.
Yes.
Next item on the agenda is an ordinance adopting certain portions of the Arkansas State Air Pollution Control Code by reference and declaring an emergency. Any questions?
Why is this an emergency?
I think it's the time of the year. We've got to get in compliance, Marty. Any other questions? Leroy?
I'm just here in case you need me.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd be glad to. This, you should have a copy of Regulation 18 from Arkansas Pollution Control in your packet. What we're trying to do is be able to enforce that locally rather than having to call someone out of Fayetteville to try and enforce the code. Typically what happens is we'll get called out to control burn that's illegal, and we know it's illegal, and they're stinking up the whole neighborhood or burning something they shouldn't be burning. Right now, our only alternative is to call the Fayetteville office. If that's 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, then we can expect a rep out in an hour, hour and a half or so. And when that happens, it's probably burned up and he can't write a citation because he didn't see what was burning. What this does is give us local authority to enforce that same Arkansas code so that our people, if they're burning something illegal and they need to be cited, then we can go ahead and do that. In a nutshell. We're not imposing any new codes or anything different than the Arkansas code already requires. We're just wanting to be able to enforce it locally rather than have to depend on an outside agency to do that.
Any other questions?
Ted had a question. Ted.
Oh, Ted, yes.
Not a question. I'd like to move to suspend the rules, place on third and final reading, read by title only.
Can I have a question first?
Second that.
Leroy, I have a question for you. I went through this carefully, and we still have farming in here, in the city limits. Now, it's a little unclear to me. Is it going to be a permit in order to burn excessive hay? Do we have to have a permit to do that?
Agricultural burning is exempt. When we talk about permits, probably ought to clarify that a little bit. We're not talking about getting a written permit to go outside and burn. Typically what that means is to call the fire department and let us know that you're going to do it so that we can advise you if it's okay or if there might be a burn ban on. A lot of times we get a lot of calls that, we want to burn today and the county or the state's put a burn ban on. Mm-hmm. So it's mainly a matter of communication between the people and the fire department as far as the permits go. If you call into the fire department and say, I'd like a permit to burn, if everything's okay, then you're good to burn. That's all it takes.
As far as agriculture, that'll stay exactly the same as it is now.
Right, yes. Agricultural burning is exempt if you read Regulation 18.
I did, but
and that's currently what we're under right now. We're not changing anything at all.
So it'll take care of those that are burning plastic bottles and
That's illegal.
oil cans and bottles and
The only thing
whatever.
you can legally burn is yard waste.
Now, will they be able, that will be okay to do that? Is that going to fall underneath a permit to burn leaves?
There again, we just ask that you call us to let us know you're going to do it.
Isn't that already in existence, that where you're supposed to call in? I
Right.
mean, we already have that in
Right.
place.
That's what I said.
Yeah, that's already in place. We're really not changing that. All it does is give us authority. If the guy's out burning plastic bottles or tires or whatever, right now our only recourse is to call Fayetteville, get their people up here to write him a citation. If we pass this ordinance, it gives us the authority to write the citation ourselves.
Is that going to be you, or is that going to be Billy?
It's going to be me or my designated representative.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Just kind of curious.
We have a motion. Excuse me.
I was just kind of curious. When they issued the tickets, where did that money go? The citation fine?
It goes to Lowell Court.
Even if they were issuing, okay. Just kinda-
Well, if Fayetteville issues it, or Tom, you'll have to answer that. I don't know if I can or not. We've had one or two cases. It's not been that often.
We don't get that money.
We don't, even if we issue that ticket.
If DEQ issues a citation, we don't ever see that.
No, we wouldn't see that. But if we pass this, then it will go through our court, so that we will.
I don't think DEQ will ever see it either.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, suspend the rules. Roll call, please.
Pamela Lamons,
Yes.
Eric Shine,
Yes.
Keith Williams,
Yes.
Marty Latham,
Yes.
Ted Morrell,
Yes.
Darren Brock,
Yes.
Carol Harmon,
Yes.
Sean Ingram.
An ordinance adopting certain portions of the Arkansas State Air Pollution Control Code by reference and declaring an emergency. Do I hear a motion do pass, please?
Motion for due pass.
I'll second.
Second. Any comments? Roll call.
Keith Williams,
Yes.
Marty Latham,
Yes.
Sean Ingram,
Yes.
Carol Harmon,
Yes.
Pamela Lamons,
Yes.
Darren Brock,
Yes.
Ted Morrell,
Yes.
Eric Shine.
Yes.
That'll be ordinance number 783.
Do I hear a motion to pass an emergency clause
So moved.
to put the following ordinance into effect immediately? An ordinance adopting certain portions of the Arkansas State Air Pollution Control Code by reference and declaring an emergency.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Carol Harmon,
Yes.
Sean Ingram, Ted Morrell,
Yes.
Eric Shine,
Yes.
Pamela Lamons,
Yes.
Keith Williams,
Yes.
Marty Latham,
Yes.
Darren Brock.
Yes.
Next item for any committee meetings. Does the Parks plan on having a meeting in the near future?
I think we should probably set another
Set a
public
date.
hearing.
Pardon?
I think we need to set another public hearing. We only had a couple people here tonight. We need to probably publicize that and get as many people here as possible just for more input.
You want to set it tonight or later?
It's up to Sean.
I think we need to wait till we get our information, and I'm going to be taking some pricing on equipment tomorrow. Cindy's waiting on some pricing from different manufacturers of equipment, playground accessories, and I was kind of relieved tonight we didn't have as many people show up just because we didn't have all the information back as soon as we thought we would.
It's fine with me.
That sounds reasonable.
6. At that time, we can compile all our information and have it presentable.
It's a public hearing. Oh, just a,
About this one.
okay, committee meeting. Okay. Streets and Sidewalks Committee. I don't think there's there is your 10. Personnel Committee, we haven't made plans for that to meet. How about the Utilities Committee? Carol,
We made
anything in the mill on that about yet?
Yes, we have a meeting April the 9th at 7 p.m. at City Hall. Is that correct?
Yeah, can we move that to 6 o'clock?
I don't have a problem.
April the 9th?
Yes.
What time?
6 p.m. here.
6 p.m.
No, at City Hall.
City Hall. Okay.
Kind of going back to streets and sidewalks, I know a few months ago there was some concern along Concord about kids walking up and down from school going on to I guess it's a Concord edition. I know that we were looking at maybe putting some sidewalks in there. You think maybe we should look at addressing that issue? I don't know if Gary's, he looks like he's got his hands full, but I don't know. I know that they were working on that, looking at adding sidewalks through there. And then I also know we had a federal grant coming in to put sidewalks on McClure Street. So
You're right. We're trying to get the pieces to that put together now, Keith, as to whether to move forward. Now, I did hear last week where Tucker School has a rule that children cannot walk to school. They must either ride a bus or be brought by a parent. Cindy, is there anything to that? I mean, if that's... If there was sidewalks, they would be allowed to walk to school. Should we get with... Should we be getting with the school and clarify this before we move forward on this sidewalk? Okay, thank you. I mean, if the school's not going to let them walk to work, there's no need, at the school, there's no need to build a sidewalk. We'll get with them then. Thank you, Cindy.
can we have some more information on that when at the next council meeting? Just just so we know where we're at on that.
We've got to move out on that and find out. We've got to answer that question before we move forward on that sidewalk, as far as I'm concerned.
I have a question.
Okay. We'll get it.
I have
Marty?
a question about the sidewalk. Cindy, maybe you can answer this. Doesn't some of the older kids get off the bus at Tucker and walk home? And the more, like in the 4 o'clock time frame?
John?
I'm John Ratsky. I live at 302 Edge Hill. And in deference to what the mayor said about the children, the people in the subdivision Concord Place also walk, and we are forced to walk in the street for that segment to make a route around our neighborhood. I would think just for that purpose alone, it would be appropriate to put the sidewalks along Concord. Thank you.
I agree, John, but the plan is to put the sidewalks east of Concord. You live west. That, I think, needs some discussion, too.
It's your land. Build the sidewalk on my side of the street.
We'll get you a crossing guard.
We're going to have some discussion over that, John. The plan is to put it east, but A lot of people want it west. Ronnie?
Mayor, I don't know if you've ever come down early in the morning and watched the kids as they walk down McClure to school from back off in these neighborhoods and everything. But they'll walk up to like Lowell and everything. There's no sidewalks all the way up through here from Honeysuckle and everything. I brought that up back even when Martha Brown was mayor about it. Some kid's going to get hit out there because there's no sidewalks. So, I mean, if you're going to do sidewalks for a school, I mean, because they're just busting out these subdivisions and everything, walking up to these schools and everything, and they're coming all the way from back over here, back down in here. They're coming from everywhere.
Ronnie, McClure sidewalks on the schedule too.
I think we've got a $130,000 grant, if I remember correctly.
Well, I'm just saying.
We have a lot of sidewalks.
At
I guess in the mill at one
$3 or $4
another.
a foot.
Yeah. Okay.
It don't cover much.
Okay, as I understand it, the next council meeting, we want a report from Gary Carnahan after he talks to Lindsay Management. I'm to find out about the children walking to Tucker School before we move forward on that. We have a Parks meeting, the 26th, and a Utilities meeting, April the 9th at 6 o'clock. We have a public hearing on the overlay district at 6:30, March the 27th, here in the courtroom. It would be nice if you all would come and listen to that presentation. Any other business?
What about the appointment of Keith and Darren?
Who?
The memo.
That's his
Oh,
homework.
it's not.
That's not an appointment. That's your homework.
That's a homework assignment.
Yeah, it's
that we
homework
got.
assignment. You're next, Carol.
Yeah, I got my homework.
Do I hear a motion we adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Voice vote, please.
Aye.
Ted, second.
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming out.